In love with my best friend, I poured my heart out only to hear, my feelings for you will always be platonic. Despite his support during my darkest days, my heart aches as I navigate between love and friendship. Can I move on without breaking this bond? This will likely be a lengthy and very disorganized story. I will probably delete this soon, but I need help. I feel compelled to provide sufficient background information to explain why I cannot view this situation in black and white terms, along with my confusion. I, a 29-year-old male, am in love with my best friend who is 23 years old and male. We met at university, where I am one of the older students in the class. Initially, I believed he was around my age because he was physically larger and had a lovely mustache. He is also quite serious and reserved in his demeanor, which contributed to the perception of him as older. Our friendship began in a typical manner. We took similar classes since we are in the same program. Then one day, we discovered that we lived near each other. Consequently, we started spending time at each other's places weekly. I found him attractive from the outset, but I was not considering him in a romantic way at that time, as I was involved in a situationship with a closeted guy. My attention was primarily focused on that relationship. Nonetheless, I was curious whether he was also interested in men. He was difficult to read and slow to open up, but certain behaviors made me wonder. For instance, while we were watching movies, he would gradually lean against me. One day, he invited me to accompany him while he selected a perfume. We visited the store, where the staff provided us 2 paper strips to try out various scents. Instead, he sprayed the fragrance on his wrist and offered his hand to me so I could smell it and determine if I liked it. I did, and he purchased it. The guy I was involved with at the time was also a classmate and a close friend, so we participated in all the first-year student events together. I was always with him while my friend was with his own group. At times, I suspected that my friend exhibited a kind of possessiveness toward me, although I occasionally wondered if it was just my wishful thinking. However, that was my instinct. For example, I would be sitting and talking with my situationship, and my friend would periodically emerge from his group to check on me, asking, "I am going to the store. Do you need anything?" Or, "I am going home. Would you like to join me or come later with him?" Or, "Would you like to go to the sauna? I will go if you go too. I do not want to go alone." One time, while I was sitting on a couch with my situationship, whom I will refer to as V from now on, he left his group and sat on my other side. He made a motion to place his hand behind me, but then restrained himself and tucked his hands in front of him instead. Instances like that occurred. At various points, I attempted to ascertain if he liked men as well. He already knew I was gay by posing indirect questions. However, he skillfully provided vague answers to avoid my inquiries. For example, while we were watching a movie, he asked me, "Do you find that actor attractive?" I responded, "Not really my type." "Why do you?" he said. "I like the Scottish accent. I think it is funny," thereby sidestepping the actual question. Now a bit about my situationship with V, as it is pertinent to the story. It was extremely toxic. He was manipulative, narcissistic, selfish, a habitual liar, and just an overall terrible person. He initially told me he was straight, but as soon as he discovered that I was gay, he began flirting with me incessantly, showering me with attention as if he were my boyfriend. One day, he revealed he was actually bisexual, a claim he maintained for about 2 months until he flipped the narrative and said he was just joking, asserting he was actually straight. That relationship was characterized by extreme highs and lows, emotional push and pull, and constantly left me teetering on the edge of anxiety. I went out of my way to spend time with him while he did as he pleased. I came to understand that he was merely using me to bolster his ego because he enjoyed the attention. Ultimately, the only solution was to eliminate him from my life, and by that time I was mentally shattered. I had suicidal thoughts and felt an overwhelming sense of distrust and insecurity, which, to be honest, was not new but had certainly worsened. V essentially obliterated any sense of self-worth I had left. The day I severed ties with V, I desperately needed someone to talk to, otherwise I felt like I was suffocating. I texted my friend, "Do you have some time? I really need to talk to someone." He replied, "Of course, come over." I went to his place and disclosed everything: V's emotional abuse towards me, the manipulation, the lies, everything. That was the first time my friend learned the exact nature of my relationship with V. Before that, he believed we were merely close friends. I explained how V consistently lied about his sexuality, at one moment identifying as gay or bisexual, and the next moment claiming it was just a joke. As I recounted all this, my friend suddenly interjected, "Forget this, I am bisexual." I was momentarily taken aback because I was not expecting him to come out to me. I responded, "Oh," he continued, "yes, but I know that you are seeking true love and a genuine long-term relationship. I am not at that phase in my life yet, so I will set a boundary." After that, he fell silent and encouraged me to continue. I did, and he listened attentively, offering support, stating that if I ever needed to talk again, he would always be there. He was. To this day, I wonder why he chose to come out to me in that moment, as it felt like such a spontaneous decision. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, he listened to my cries about V, comforted me, and reassured me that he was always present. Because of him, I eventually managed to move on from V entirely. Otherwise, I have no idea how I would have coped. We went on a trip to a neighboring country for a few days, and it was a delightful 3-day experience. One evening, we visited a bar to enjoy some cocktails. After chatting and drinking for a while, I found myself flirting with him. He awkwardly responded, "You are not really my type." This stung, of course, and I fell silent for a moment. He asked, "Did I hurt you?" I replied, "No, it's all right." He noted, you become friends with someone and start to think that if they wanted to take things further, you would be interested. I just never felt that with you. There was never any spark. I reflected on all the moments when I thought maybe he had been into me or shown some form of interest, leading me to wonder if I had misread everything. Here is some background information. He is bisexual but has never had sex with anyone. He kissed a girl once but nothing more. He mentioned having a crush on a childhood male friend back in his home country but never acted on it. He is also not on any dating apps. He once mentioned that he had insecurities regarding his attractiveness and had a fear of putting his face on dating platforms. I, for one, could not understand why, as I find him very handsome. He stated he was not ready for a long-term relationship at this point in his life and was only interested in casual sexual relationships. Various people from university, both men and women, have flirted with him, but when he realized they desired something romantic and long-term, he backed off, stating, "I am not a romantic." Despite his assertion that I was not his type, I found myself falling for him regardless. His calm and steady presence provided a sense of comfort unlike anything I had ever experienced. However, those developing feelings unearthed the trauma that V had inflicted on me not long before. I began to feel paranoid, obsessive, terrified, distrustful, and extremely insecure. If I sensed any degree of neglect or oversight from him, always unintentional, I would retreat inwardly, fearing that this would repeat my previous experience. It is worth noting that my friend never led me on or gave me false hope. Unlike V, nonetheless, I continued to concoct worst-case scenarios in my mind and drove myself to madness. The comfort I initially felt quickly transformed into anxiety, insecurity, and fear. I found myself scrutinizing every single action he took, looking for signs of his impending abandonment. I overthought things to an unreasonable degree in my head. One day, after having one of those mental breakdowns, I realized that I might not be suited for such a close friendship at the moment. I considered that perhaps I should distance myself from him. It did not seem fair for him to endure my chaos through no fault of his own, and I did not believe I could maintain control. I invited him over one night to explain. I was quite emotionally unstable at that time, and he observed it. He said, "I value our friendship very highly and I appreciate how close we are. I want us to remain close friends. I want to be friends not only when you are at your best but also when you are at your worst." I told him I was having a difficult time trusting him and feeling secure in our relationship. He responded, "Then we will take it one step at a time to build that trust." I wish I could say that after his beautiful words, I suddenly felt secure in our friendship and that everything was resolved. Unfortunately, it was not. The following months were a nightmare, largely due to my actions. I experienced almost daily breakdowns, lashed out at him, and doubted everything he said and did. I can only imagine how exhausting it must have been for him to deal with that constantly. However, as always, he stood by me quietly and resolutely, reassured me each time, and when I mentioned that if he did certain things to ease my fears, he would try his best to fulfill those requests. Each time I asked something of him, I ended with, "Sorry, you don't have to do it," because I was also apprehensive that maybe this time he would become angry with me. But he would reply, "You do not have to say sorry. I would not do it if I did not want to." I did not make things easy for him. I was exceedingly toxic much of the time. I think I tried to push him away before he could leave me. I continuously awaited the other shoe to drop and wondered why he had not walked away yet. Was I truly worth all this trouble? He has other friends who are mentally stable and not subjecting him to this draining ordeal daily. I asked him, "Wouldn't it be a lot easier for you if you just let go?" He replied, "It is far more painful for me that way and for you." After one of my breakdowns, I asked him, "Are you angry?" He responded, "I am not mad, I am just tired and sad. You are jumping from one extreme to another. I want you to be stable and safe. I have seen glimpses of you being happy and comfortable and dare I say it safe. But then you shift back into sadness and anxiety and that hurts." The more he expressed sentiments like that, the harder I fell for him. I could not contain myself. Throughout my life, I do not believe I have encountered anyone who witnessed my worst moments and said, "I am even more certain of you now. If you are trying to make me rethink our friendship, it will not work. I am not leaving you." So one day I revealed to him that I was in love with him. He replied, "My feelings for you will always be platonic." He then asked me to give him an hour, assuring me he would respond properly. I went to bed early that night because I was devastated, even though I had anticipated this response. An hour later, he began responding. My phone vibrated for a full hour with his messages. The next morning, when I opened the messages, I found lengthy essays. I saw how much he opened his heart in those texts, even if it was not what I wanted to hear. Especially from someone as stoic as he, who does not easily share, I recognized how significant it was that I was likely among the very few people allowed to witness this side of him. He expressed how much he cared for me and committed to making me feel safe and secure in our friendship, but he could never provide the romantic love that I sought. He acknowledged my feelings and expressed his willingness to manage them until the day I ultimately moved on and our relationship remained platonic. However, he avoided using the term love, even when stating how much I meant to him and the care he had for me. Despite such a clear and firm rejection, my heart refused to let go. No matter how hard I attempted to accept that he would never love me in the way I desired, I simply could not. I kept reflecting on all the things he said and did, questioning how any of it could be purely platonic, particularly for someone he had only met less than 2 years ago. I recalled the times when V's name surfaced and the visceral reaction it prompted in him. He would grimace as if he could not bear me mentioning him, except when I criticized V, that is, then he appeared happy. He loathes V despite having communicated with him only once. He once stated, "I do not even want to be in the same space as him." One day, while walking through the park, I suddenly asked, "Do you know what happened with V in class today?" He halted in his tracks and his expression hardened. "What happened?" I was slightly taken aback by his intensity. I replied, "Why are you stopping?" He said, "You will tell me what happened now or I will not move." He was attempting to lighten the mood, but I could sense he was grappling with something. I said, "It's just that he looked really awful and seems to be going through something." He relaxed a bit, responding, "Well, that is unfortunate, but it is not your problem." We resumed walking. Then there were those times he could read me like a book. It was uncanny how he could glance at me and instantly know how I was feeling even through texts. At times, it felt as though I could never conceal my emotions from him because he simply knew. Then he would reassure me unprompted if he sensed I was becoming anxious about something. He once remarked, "Even if we are not in constant communication, my love for you will not cease." That was the first time he uttered the word love aloud. I knew he meant it in a platonic context, but still, it captured my heart, and much of the insecurity I felt regarding our relationship subsided somewhat. Additionally, he genuinely admired my hair. I used to keep my hair very short, but when I began letting it grow out, he awkwardly suggested, "Maybe you should let your hair grow instead of cutting it. It is really nice and curly." I decided to let it grow, which I ended up really liking, so I chose to maintain it that way. However, if I mentioned trimming it a bit, he would respond, "It would be strange if you cut your hair short again. Long hair suits you much better." I could tell from his tone that he genuinely preferred I not short my hair. Generally, he refrained from complimenting me on my appearance, but every so often I think he lost himself in the moment, stating, "You have really nice hair and I like your stubbly beard. It suits you well," before awkwardly becoming silent and avoiding eye contact. Fast forward to the night when I finally resolved to move on from my feelings for him. My friend has a habit of going above and beyond to make amends if something he did upset me even slightly. For example, when we were working on a project sitting side by side, my leg accidentally brushed against his. He quipped, "Why are you making physical contact?" I shifted my leg but asked, "Did it bother you?" He said, "No, but right now it is distracting me from focusing on the project." That night when he came to my place for our movie night, he leaned heavily against me as if trying to make up for his earlier reaction. While we were talking about him being emotionally vulnerable, I noted that he opened up slowly. He responded, "I have never opened up to anyone the way I have opened up to you." We discussed how I felt jealous whenever I heard about other guys flirting with or hitting on him. He remarked, "You always become very angry." He then recounted incidents of different guys flirting with him, including friends from his home country sitting on his lap or having seen him naked in the gym showers. Although these events occurred before we met and were relatively harmless, I still struggled with them. I brought up the friend he had a crush on, asking, "Do you still have feelings for him?" He answered, "What I consider feelings are far weaker than what you believe qualifies as feelings." I inquired, "If he wanted you now, would you go?" He said, "Do you want the truth?" I replied, "Yes." He responded, "We would be friends with benefits." It felt like a knife piercing my heart and I knew he could tell it hurt. I asked, "What about a relationship?" He stated, "No." I reminded him, "That day you told me you would never be with me, but today you're saying if that friend asked, you would." He clarified, "It is not the same. Would you be content with casual encounters?" I replied, "No, I do not believe you would be either. You are a romantic and that is a fundamental part of your character. I am not. I am merely exploring what I want. Those friends would not mind if I told them about my flirtations with other people. They would simply laugh because there are no feelings involved." After this exchange, we attempted to return to the show we were watching, but he noticed my distress. I was clearly in pain. He asked, "Do you want me to leave so that you can process everything I said?" I remained silent. He added, "Maybe this will assist you in moving on from your feelings for me and transitioning our relationship to a platonic one." I said, "You definitively stated that you would never feel anything for me." He countered, "When we first met, I considered having a casual sexual relationship with you. But then I got to know you better and resolved that I do not want any sexual relationship with you. Being involved with someone seeking true love is a recipe for disaster." I recalled when he explained that he had never felt a spark between us or contemplated anything romantic. I asked, "Are you telling me this to comfort me?" He answered, "No, it is the truth." I asked, "Why did you consider that if I am not your type?" He fell silent before admitting, "You are my emotional type. That is why we are such good friends." I told him, "You are mistaken about yourself. You are right about many things, but you are not always accurate." He smiled and said, "That's unfortunate. I enjoy being correct." I stated, "The way you have consistently stood by me despite everything, the manner in which you stubbornly refuse to give up, and how you have witnessed the worst of me yet still say you enjoy spending time with me is romantic. It is more than simply growing old together." He hesitated. For the first time, I sensed uncertainty in his response. He quietly said, "You believe romance is tied to domestic life and aging together." I retorted, "That may be the ultimate goal, but that is not my interpretation of romance." He fell mute once more. I questioned, "What is your ambition then?" I expected him to mention something regarding his career or aspirations, but he responded, "If I tell you, we will never discuss this again." I agreed. He admitted, "I simply want evenings where I do not want to end at all." This statement shattered me. Overwhelmed by the emotion of the evening, I finally broke into tears. He immediately responded, "No, no, please do not do that. I would never do anything to hurt you." I had always viewed him as this stoic, composed individual entirely in control, so mature and wise. I had no idea he was concealing so much hurt beneath that facade. I also realized that I was the only person he had shared that with. After a period of quiet reflection, he packed up. As we stood at my door, I said, "You will change, you know." "My instincts about people are rarely incorrect. You will change," he replied. "Do not indulge in false hope." I voiced my frustration, saying, "I am so angry with you for telling me about that friend that I want to punch you." He chuckled softly. "Most people in your position would not divulge such information, but I appreciate your honesty." I said, "Yes, now leave." He smiled and instead leaned against the fridge, adding, "We are caught in this emotional limbo because neither of us is willing to yield." I remained silent. Then he stated, "But we have a bond. I do not think it will ever fade." I agreed and paused. Before departing, he turned back and we shared a quiet gaze for a few moments. I may have imagined it, but for an instant I thought he wanted to kiss me. However, he turned away and said, "It has been a long day. Get some rest." I do not believe there is any hope for him to ever love me in the way I desire. Therefore, I genuinely want to move on from my feelings so I can love him solely as the wonderful friend he is. However, I do not want to create any distance between us for that to happen, as it would hurt him just as much as it would hurt me. I simply do not know how to achieve that. In summary, I am in love with my best friend. Both of us are male, I am gay, and he is bisexual. He has supported me through extremely challenging times in my life, even when I was incredibly difficult to be around, and he refused to abandon me. I confessed my feelings for him, but he stated he loved me, albeit not in the same manner. Now I wish to move on from my feelings for him without having to distance myself from him.